There are stories in the Bible that seem hidden at first glance. They don't leap off the pages, nor are they often the focus of sermons. Yet they hold secrets capable of transforming our understanding of faith, leadership, and purpose. The sons of Moses, Gershom and Eleazar, are part of this mystery. How is it possible that the descendants of one of the greatest leaders in sacred history are mentioned so sparingly? What might God be teaching us through this silence? Perhaps you can relate. Have you ever felt like your role in the world seems too small, almost invisible? The story of Gershom and Eleazar challenges this notion, revealing the hidden value in contributions that go unrecognized. These seemingly insignificant names are like a treasure chest waiting to be unlocked. The surprise? They hold lessons that can change the way you view your own journey. But why didn't Moses' sons become leaders? Were they forgotten by history, or is there something greater at play? Get ready, because the answers are not only intriguing, they touch on themes that transcend centuries, from the wilderness of Midian to the challenges of modern life. In this video, we'll uncover what lies behind this silence. Together, we'll delve into the emotions, choices, and mysteries surrounding these characters. And by the end, you may discover that there's a little bit of Gershom and Eleazar in you, too. It's fascinating to consider how some characters in the Bible, despite being closely connected to great leaders, end up fading from the main narratives. Gershom and Eleazar, the sons of Moses, are perfect examples of this. While Moses shone as the liberating leader, his sons remained almost invisible. But does this mean their lives were insignificant? Or is there something deeper we fail to notice at first glance? Sometimes in life, we too feel our role is too small. But what if we took a closer look at the backstage of our story? The Bible, with all its depth, offers few clues about Gershom and Eleazar. They didn't inherit the mantle of leadership like Aaron's sons, and no great deeds are attributed to them. However, this doesn't make them irrelevant. Quite the opposite. Think of the people who play essential roles in our daily lives, like a friend who always listens or a colleague who keeps everything organized at work. Without these people, the protagonist doesn't shine. What happens in the shadows is often just as important as what occurs under the spotlight. There's also something profoundly human about the absence of Gershom and Eleazar in the main biblical stories. Perhaps you've asked yourself, why aren't my efforts recognized as they should be? The lives of Moses' sons echo that same feeling. But what can we learn from this? A great lesson lies in realizing that not all greatness needs applause. Imagine living with the knowledge that your contribution serves as a foundation for something greater, even if no one notices. Perhaps the greatest lesson here is about serving with humility. Another layer of this mystery lies in the role God has reserved for each individual. Gershom and Eleazar may not have led tribes, but their existence carries powerful meanings. Their names, which we'll explore in the next topic, are clues about Moses' spiritual journey and the impact his choices had on his family. It's almost as if the sons were a reflection of their father's emotions and faith. What about you? Have you ever stopped to think about how your experiences shape those around you, even in invisible ways? These seemingly forgotten characters challenge us to look beyond the obvious. It's not about the lack of prominence, but about the significance that remains hidden. This leads us to ask, what else in Scripture and in life are we overlooking? As we delve into the next point, we'll uncover how Moses' exile in Midian not only shaped his journey but also influenced the story and spiritual meaning of Gershom and Eleazar. Moses, the great leader who faced pharaohs and led a people to freedom, began his personal transformation in the wilderness of Midian. It was there, far from palaces and glory, that he transitioned from being a prince of Egypt to becoming a shepherd. In this place, he met Zipporah and started a family. Gershom and Eleazar were born during this period of transition, a time of rupture and redemption. It's fascinating to think how the quietest periods of our lives, those moments when we feel lost, can actually be the most meaningful. The wilderness was not just a physical location, it was also a spiritual space. Moses, who had been accustomed to power and abundance, was forced to embrace simplicity and total dependence on God. Gershom, his firstborn, was given a name that bore the weight of this transition. I have become a foreigner in a foreign land. Imagine what it meant for Moses, a man raised in the Egyptian court, to acknowledge his complete alienation. Doesn't it resonate with those moments in life when we feel out of place, even surrounded by familiar things? Midian wasn't just a setting for exile, it was also a place of learning. Moses' relationship with Zipporah, a woman of faith and courage, added a new layer to his journey. His sons were born into an environment that blended cultures and traditions, reflecting the complexity of the alliances Moses had to build. Zipporah's story, often underrepresented, serves as a powerful reminder of how family can provide critical support in times of uncertainty. And what about you? Are you valuing the people who stand by your side, even when things feel difficult? By examining the meaning behind the names of Moses' sons, we uncover a narrative that goes beyond words. Gershom and Eleazar weren't just children, they were markers of a spiritual journey. While Gershom represented the pain of exile, Eleazar was a testimony to divine help, to how God never abandoned Moses, even in his loneliness. This invites us to reflect. How can we turn our most challenging moments into testimonies of faith and resilience? Perhaps it's through practicing gratitude or creating memories that reflect the lessons learned during those times. This phase of Moses' life sets the stage for us to explore the depth of meaning behind these names. After all, each name in his family wasn't chosen by chance. They are fragments of a larger story, reflections of the internal and external battles Moses faced. In the next section, we'll delve into the meanings of Gershom and Eleazar, uncovering how these names reveal the profound connections between identity, faith, and the spiritual journey. Names in the Bible are not mere labels. They carry profound meanings that reveal stories and destinies. When Moses named his first son Gershom, he was expressing a cry from the depths of his soul. "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land" was more than a phrase. It was a summary of his experience in exile. Imagine the weight of those words, especially for someone who had grown up in a palace, surrounded by luxury and power, only to now find himself as a humble shepherd, far from his origins and divine mission. It's a reminder that, often, we feel like strangers in our own journeys. In contrast, Eleazar offers a bright counterbalance. "God is my help." It's as if Moses sought to balance the narrative of his life with hope and gratitude. While Gershom reflects pain and isolation, Eleazar proclaims God's faithful presence amid hardship. Isn't this something we all experience? In moments of crisis, we feel the weight of emotional exile, but when we look back, we recognize divine help at every step. Why not take a moment right now to reflect on the Gershoms and Eleazars in your own life? The choice of these names also shows how deeply Moses was connected to his emotions and his faith. He didn't shy away from difficult feelings. Instead, he acknowledged them and transformed them into symbols. In our lives, this can translate into how we deal with challenges. If you're facing a difficult time, perhaps writing about it, naming it, or even turning it into a personal milestone could bring clarity and purpose. It's like creating a spiritual journal that connects your pain to your faith. Interestingly, the meanings of these names also point to a dual journey. Moses as a leader and his sons as heirs to a complex story. Gershom and Eleazar were more than sons. They were living reminders of God's promises and challenges. Perhaps this serves as an invitation for you to view the events in your life, even the most difficult ones, as part of a greater narrative. What story are you writing with your choices and experiences? Now that we've uncovered the depth behind the names Gershom and Eleazar, the question arises: why didn't they inherit a leadership role like other significant descendants? What does their absence teach us about the unique roles each person plays in God's plan? In the next section, we'll explore this apparent gap and unravel the mysteries of what it means to serve behind the scenes. The absence of Gershom and Eleazar from the major narratives of Exodus might initially seem puzzling. After all, they were the sons of Moses, the man who led the people to freedom. Why didn't they play a prominent role like Aaron's descendants? This absence isn't merely an omission. It carries profound meaning. Gershom and Eleazar remind us that not everyone is called to stand in the spotlight, and that's perfectly okay. In life, there is a sacred space for those who work quietly behind the scenes. When compared to Aaron's sons, who inherited priestly leadership roles, the contrast is striking. Aaron represented the public figure, while Moses was the spiritual leader with direct connection to God. Moses' sons did not inherit this connection in the same way. Yet, this doesn't mean their contribution was insignificant. They remind us that a person's impact isn't always measured by the recognition they receive. Think of all the people who have influenced your life without ever appearing in your public biography. Perhaps a teacher, a neighbor, or even a colleague who encouraged you at just the right moment. The role of Gershom and Eleazar can be seen as a call to humility. They lived in Moses' shadow, but this didn't diminish their worth. In our own journeys, we often crave recognition and applause, forgetting that anonymous service is just as essential in God's kingdom. Perhaps you're not in the spotlight right now, but how could you use your skills to support something greater? Consider how the backstage of a performance is just as crucial as the actors on the stage. Moreover, the lack of prominence given to Moses' sons might reflect God's priority of assigning each person a unique mission. Gershom and Eleazar had their own roles, even if they aren't detailed in the text. This reminds us that whether our work is visible or unseen, what truly matters is that it aligns with God's purpose. What about you? Are you fulfilling the role God has given you with dedication, even if no one notices? This story, far from being a gap, invites us to reflect on what it means to serve in silence. But what about God's greater plan? There is something powerful in performing small roles with excellence. This leads us to explore, in the next section, how working behind the scenes is an integral part of God's design and what this dynamic teaches about faith and obedience. Gershom and Eleazar remind us that God's plan doesn't always involve apparent greatness. They lived their lives away from the spotlight, but this doesn't mean they were insignificant. In a world that values visible success so highly, it's easy to forget that God's kingdom is often built in the hidden places, where no one is watching. Think of a building's foundation. No one sees it, but without it, the structure cannot stand. Similarly, the contributions of Moses' sons reflect the beauty of serving without seeking recognition. Humility is one of the central themes in the lives of Gershom and Eleazar. They teach us that not everyone needs to be a visible leader to fulfill their divine mission. How often do we feel pressured to stand out or prove our worth to the world? Yet the truth is, in silence and simplicity, we can discover our greatest purpose. A modern example of this is the countless anonymous volunteers who dedicate their time to noble causes. Their reward doesn't come from applause, but from knowing they are serving a greater good. Faith and obedience go hand in hand in the story of these two characters. They show us that serving God is not about grand achievements. It's about faithfulness in the small things. It's like planting a tree whose full growth you may never see. The reward isn't in the immediate fruit, but in the lasting impact. Perhaps it's time for you to reflect on how you're serving in your daily life. Are you chasing visible results, or are you willing to trust the process, even when you can't see the outcome yet? Another fascinating point is how the story of Gershom and Eleazar aligns with God's very character. He doesn't see as humans do. While we focus on the outward appearance, God examines the heart. Think about how this shifts the perspective of what is important. You may be investing in something right now that seems small, but in God's eyes, it holds immense value. Never underestimate the power of a quiet act of faith. Ultimately, their lives invite us to reconsider our definition of success. Are we so focused on being noticed that we forget to be faithful? The example of Gershom and Eleazar challenges us to ask, what is the true role of behind-the-scenes work in God's plan? This reflection prepares us for the next section, where we'll explore how the covenant laws and a critical moment within Moses' family further highlight the importance of commitment to obedience. The moment when Moses had to circumcise his son is one of the most intriguing and meaningful episodes in the biblical narrative. Imagine the tension: a leader chosen by God, on the brink of fulfilling his monumental mission, confronted with the need to adjust his own obedience to divine laws. Circumcision, more than a physical act, was a profound symbol of covenant and commitment. At that moment, Moses had to decide whether his family would fully align with the covenant God had established with Abraham. Zipporah, his wife, played a crucial role in this event, stepping in during a moment of crisis to ensure the covenant was upheld. This episode teaches us that even the greatest leaders, like Moses, rely on others to help correct their paths. There's something profoundly human and comforting in this, knowing that even in moments of weakness, God places people around us to help realign our hearts to His plan. Who are the Zipporahs in your life? Those people who help you stay focused on what truly matters. The circumcision of Moses' son was more than a ritual. It was a reaffirmation of his dedication to obedience to God. This moment reminds us that God's laws are not arbitrary. They serve as guides that keep us connected to Him and to our mission. Often, we're tempted to overlook the small details of divine instructions, but could we be underestimating their importance? What practical steps can you take today to strengthen your commitment to your faith and your promises? This episode also teaches us that God's calling demands completeness. Moses could not lead the people of Israel without first aligning his own household with God's requirements. It's a powerful reminder that our leadership, whether at home, at work, or in the community, begins with personal integrity. What if you took time to reflect on how you can be a stronger example for those who depend on you? Perhaps it means addressing small mistakes or even re-evaluating your priorities. As we reflect on this critical moment in Moses' life, it becomes clear that the covenant laws are not just about rules but about a living and vibrant relationship with God. But why did God choose such a dramatic moment to emphasize this lesson? And how did this impact Moses' journey moving forward? These mysteries draw us into the depths of God's plan and lead us to even richer reflections. Throughout this video, we've delved into a story that seemed forgotten but, in reality, holds timeless lessons about faith, humility, and purpose. Now, let me ask you, how are you living your journey? Are you recognizing the value in the small moments, the quiet roles, or are you still caught in the need for applause and recognition? Perhaps it's time to reflect on how your life can impact others, even when no one is watching. What can you take away from this story? How about starting by acknowledging the Zipporahs in your life? Those people who silently help you stay focused. Or maybe it's time to rethink how you view challenges. Are they burdens or opportunities for spiritual growth? Have you given a name to the significant moments in your journey, just as Moses did with his sons? If this message resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear, which part of Gershom and Eleazar's story spoke to you the most? Let's start a conversation about it. And remember, your contribution to this channel is just as important as the story we've shared today. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss a single video. Who knows? The next video might hold the answer to a question you didn't even know you needed to ask.